Hi, I'm Becca Keenel from the Save Acworth History Foundation. Today we're at the Acworth Depot History Center. We're going to talk to Mayor Tommy Allegood about the pandemic and how it has affected Acworth.
Well, good morning. I'm Mayor Tommy Allegood, and today is May the 28th, 2020. And you know, Becca, we are about 70 days into this pandemic. We call it the season of the pandemic that started for us sometime around mid-March. And I know for all of us here in our community today, we can all remember where we were and kind of what we were doing on that day that we first heard that name pandemic and realized that there was a pandemic and how it was going to affect our lives. Well, as it began to seem like a very serious thing for not only the country but also for our community, we enacted a state of emergency on March the 19th. And that state of emergency basically was a three-part state of emergency. First of all, we issued a state of emergency that said that everybody that lived in the city needed to stay in their home unless they were going to go out for something specific, like go to the grocery store. The next part of that was social distancing. You had to basically make sure that you stayed 6 foot from people that you would pass if you were out. And we strongly urged everybody to wear a mask. And then also we put into effect in our state of emergency something really important that impacted our business community. We put very strict restrictions on all of our businesses, and we kind of looked at businesses from the standpoint that they were essential and non-essential type businesses, and we put restrictions in place. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we would slow down the spread of the virus and try to keep all of our citizens safe in such a manner that we really enacted this social distancing. So if you were a business and you had customers that were in close proximity, more than likely for a period of time, you were not going to be able to operate. Restaurants specifically, we have about 100 restaurants in our community. Those restaurants were all of a sudden not able to have any dining in their restaurants. They could have pickup, takeout and pickup at the curb, but they could not have any in-restaurant dining. That was one restriction, and then there were a lot of other restrictions on businesses, people that cut hair and did nails and things like that. Those people just had to stop doing business. And then if you were a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a big box, you could let people in, but you systematically had to count the number of people that were going in. So there were a lot of things initially in that March 19th state of emergency that were implemented. Thank goodness, I think, because of our very good reaction to what the CDC was saying, and we were able to never have any kind of outbreak in the city. We never became a hot spot. Cobb County today, Cobb County has had 3,000 confirmed cases with about 160 deaths. Right now today in the state of Georgia, about 40,000 cases with somewhere around 3,000 deaths. So there are different places in Georgia that have been impacted, but Acworth, because our citizens, I believe, have done such a really good job, has not really had a real big impact.
Tommy, talk about some of the challenges the different city departments have had to face.
Well, Becca, we have 8 different departments in the city, and they range from the administrative department, our police department, Power and Public Works, our power department, our IT department, and then finance department, customer service, and all of these departments interact with the public and have to interact with one another. Initially, with the state of the emergency order, we initially shut down all city buildings. As we were restricting businesses, we also restricted the way that we did business. So all of the buildings were closed, but city services continued to be delivered. Obviously, you got to keep your community safe, so we made sure that our police department continued to operate. But within every department, the power, the public works, all these essential parts of our services that we deliver to our citizens, we put everybody on schedules where people weren't coming in contact with one another. One of the biggest challenges that we faced was if in any of these departments, let's say a shift at our police department, if somebody became infected with the COVID, that could actually take out an entire shift at our police department, rendering us very vulnerable from a public safety standpoint. So we, from the very beginning, took all of our shifts and we segregated our shifts. We segregated the way that we used police equipment, and also kind of along the same lines, that was really important was the enforcement. You know, the state of emergency had certain enforcement, and so we adopted a policy, kind of a lenient enforcement policy, unlike a lot of cities in the nation, that we would not put our police officers and our frontline people in contact with people that might infect our folks. And once again, we've been very, very fortunate to not have anybody on our city staff to actually contract the COVID. We've had a couple of folks that went through a quarantine and were tested negative. So we've been very lucky. Again, the city has never been in danger of being a hot spot like a lot of cities and a lot of areas throughout the state of Georgia. I think another big challenge was communication. How do we communicate if we are in different shifts and we are coming and going at different times? How do we communicate with one another? And more importantly, how do we communicate with our citizens so that to make sure, more than just having email. So we set up a series of video interviews that we posted on our website on a regular basis, telling people what was going on, and then we just really worked really hard to over-communicate and make sure our citizens knew everything that was going on within our community. And today, we are actually kind of waking up from this quarantine season, and we have everything open in the city today with the exception of our beaches and our community center. Those will open next week. So as of about this time next week, we should have everything open. And we were one of kind of the first cities, because we were doing so well, to be able to open up things early and to be successful in doing that.
Can you talk a little bit about how the pandemic has affected Acworth's economy?
It's a great question, and there's so many unknowns to that. Initially, you have to look at where does the city revenue come from? And the revenue comes from, only about 50% of our revenue comes from property taxes. So the other 50% is coming from basically things that are related to our business community as a whole, and different types of services and things that we charge for. So if you think about the fact that everybody on March the 19th is quarantined, they can't go out, well, you know what, they're not consuming anything either. So there's no basic consumption unless you're on the internet, consuming on the internet, which we don't get any direct benefit from internet consumption here. So we realized right off the bat that we were going to be impacted, and as we have come through these last 70 days, we began to work on our budget for the year 2021, which begins on August 1st. Our fiscal year ends July 31st of 2020, and so we're coming toward the end of our first fiscal year. We got a big hole in our budget because of revenues, because business is being closed and revenues. We believe we're going to have somewhere around about a $400,000 hole in our revenues that make up the revenues that we receive, business-related functions all throughout our city. And then the other unknown is for the upcoming year of 2021. And how do you plan and forecast, not knowing exactly how the economy, how things are going to recover. So we've had so many unknowns. We've got a hole in our revenue and our budget, and the one thing that we're really blessed right this minute is the fact that with the 1,400 businesses that we have in our community, I'm not aware of any business that hasn't opened back up or is not planning to open back up. There's probably somebody out there, but thank goodness they're going to open back up. But the big question now really comes into, as those businesses open, how will the citizens in our city begin to shop? What are those shopping patterns going to be? Even though we have an average age of 37 years old in our community, there are folks like you and me, Becca, that are paying real close attention to the fact that we want to be careful about where we go, who we're around, because we are in that vulnerable age category, and so we are aware of that. So the impact to our economy is yet to be determined. We know we've had impact, we can see it, we can already feel it, and you know, we just hope and pray that our businesses will all be okay and that our citizens will be able to get out and begin to consume. I personally believe until we have some kind of resolution about a vaccine, you know, at that point, it'll probably really inspire people to really get back out. I think there'll be a lot of trepidation in between now and then, and a lot of unknowns that we'll be dealing with.
Well, Tommy, now I want you to look in your crystal ball and see where Acworth is going to be 6 months to a year from now.
Well, you know, that crystal ball is a little bit fuzzy right this minute. Here's what I know about our community. We're a very resilient community. And we're resilient because of the people that live in this community. Our population is right at about 24,000 people, and we have been blessed with such special people that live in our community that do so much and give back so much. I can't begin to tell you about all the inspiring stories of people helping people during this time. One of the stories that kind of comes to mind is a lady named Charlie Mae Griffin. Charlie Mae Griffin is 94 years old, and she has lived in this community almost all of her life. And during the pandemic, she shared with Tim Houston, who serves on our city council, the fact that her roof was leaking. And so Tim went to visit her, and we figured out that the roof was just in terrible shape. It was leaking in 3 or 4 different places, and here we are right in the middle of a pandemic. What are we going to do? And Tim called on James Albright, who works for the city, who called on Vic Rosati, who owns Liberty Roofing, who calls on North Star Church, and who calls on CRS, commercial roofing expert. And together, coming together, provided the materials and labor to be able to fix and repair Charlie Mae Griffin's roof. So right in the middle of all of this, our people in our community are thinking about helping other people. I can't begin to tell you about the restaurants that were closed down, that couldn't have in-house dining, that were serving our different parts of our community, people that couldn't get out, the senior part of our community, the young people. See, all the kids are out of school, and they are actually working to help provide lunches and do different things through some of the churches and through these restaurants for people in our community that had some real needs. So when I think about where we are today, May the 20th, 2020, and where we'll be 6 months, 8 months from today, a year from today, I know that the people in this community that love this community and that love one another so much are going to get out and begin to really support our business, because really it boils down to making sure that as our businesses open back up and the in-dining process happens, it's really going to be determined by how we respond as a community and support our businesses. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that our community is going to do such a wonderful job at supporting our community. So I'm very optimistic. We're resilient. I'm very optimistic. I think from the standpoint of hope, I think God gives us a lot of reasons to be really hopeful about our future.
Tommy, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. We really appreciate all the hard work that you and the entire city staff have done.
Well, thank you, and thank you. I want to thank the Save the Acworth History Foundation for being such great partners. We love you guys, and we appreciate everything that you do.
Well, you know, every time we need anything, from you down to the lowest employee in the city of Acworth, you're always willing to help us, and we certainly appreciate that.
Well, God bless you guys.